A little bit about me before we get started. My name is Matt Wilkinson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Biz Inc. And I've been working for over 15 years in online business, and actually exclusively with accountants and bookkeepers since 2010. And we at Biz Inc. work with firms in the US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and we're a preferred supplier of websites to MYOB partners. Um, what we're going to be covering in the session today is does social media work for accountants and bookkeepers? That's a question I get asked a lot. We're going to look at 5 different ways that you can use social media, which social sites you should use, and quickly how you can get started with social media. So let's dive in, and we're going to address that question first. Does social media work? And I guess that kind of really defines in terms of what you mean by does it work, because unlike other forms of marketing, social media is quite complex. That there's a lot of elements to it, and it covers content distribution, there's conversations that you have with people, networking, and advertising. So in terms of it working, it's hard to give just one answer. So we're going to look at all those different ways, but certainly in terms of evaluating it, you have to realize that it's not like traditional marketing. It's something that's quickly become very important in terms of the number of people who are using it. So if you look at Facebook, you've got 1.7 billion users on Facebook. LinkedIn, 380 million users, and Twitter, you've got 313 million users. So there's a huge amount of people on social media, and in terms of most of your clients and prospects, they're going to be using social media. So basically, you need to be on there as well to be having conversations with those people. And what we also need to look at is, why is social media important? Well, one of the things is that now 28% of time spent online is social media. So you're compared to other things that people are doing. It's one of the most popular activities that people are doing online. And the other thing is that compared to, let's say, other forms of online marketing, social media is conversational, not transactional. And why that's important is that I think if we think of search engines, for example, like Google, that's one of the ways I think that a lot of people think is very important in online marketing, is to be top of Google, as you would say. But that actually really suits transactional businesses, for example, like an e-commerce store, where the transaction is very simple. Somebody just goes to the website and buys a product. But for accountants and bookkeepers, you're in the relationships business, and to sell, you actually need to have conversations with people. It's not just to kind of come to your website, click, and they become a client. And so social media really fits with that. It's a conversational medium. So I think that makes it very important for accountants and bookkeepers. It really fits with the way that you should do marketing and the way that you should sell. And I think in a funny way, although people think of social media as this new thing, and in one way it is very new, doing things socially is obviously kind of a very old thing, and I think that really fits in well with the old way that firms did marketing in terms of networking. it used to be called social networking. I mean, social media has become the default term, but it did used to be called social networking, and that's a large part of how it works. And that's very much how firms used to do their marketing. Word of mouth, people recommend other people through social media, and that very much reflects that referral network, which is the mainstay of how a lot of firms do their marketing. And it's also a great way to demonstrate expertise. So all of these things that are in this kind of new medium, social media, they're actually very like a lot of the old marketing that accountants and bookkeepers used to do. So I want to have a jump in and have a look at some of the ways that you can or should be using social media. I think the main ways are to distribute content, to engage with clients and prospects, networking, research, and then finally advertising. And I think these are the main ways that you can get a good result from social media. So the first one we'll have a look at is distributing content. And hopefully you made the webinar last week where we talked about content marketing. What we were talking about is content being the fuel for your marketing machine. You need to have this content that's talking to your clients and your prospects' pain points, and that's going to fuel the rest of your marketing activities. So, if I use that analogy of the marketing machine, well, social media, I think, is a key part of that marketing machine for accountants. We'll be looking at things like email next week, search engines, but social is really a key part of that. And I think it's over the last year or two become more important, and it's only going to become more important again. So really, in terms of content, what you need to be doing is pretty much any piece of content that you publish, whether that's on your blog, whether it's on YouTube, whether you create an ebook, you need to be mentioning that through social media. So, I'll take the example of a blog. If you post to your blog, you should also, if you're on, for example, Facebook, you should mention it there. You should also mention it on, LinkedIn if you're there as well. So you're creating that kind of amplification of the content that you publish. Some people say that the kind of ratio of time that you should spend is 20% creating content and 80% of the time promoting content. And I'd say that's where you're going to spend a lot of your time on social media, is promoting content that you've created, like on your website. And one thing that you have to do is, when you can't just post things once, you need to repeat them several times to make sure your post has been seen. A good example of this would be Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, you'll know that there's a huge amount of content on there getting pushed through all the time. So if you just, let's say you did a blog post and you did a quick post on Twitter, the chance of the people you want seeing that is really slim, because they might only visit Twitter once a day, maybe twice a day. So if they don't visit at the exact time when you've posted, it's probably going to get lost in the kind of mass of other content that's there. So you really need to repeat what your social posts. So your blog, you could have tens, hundreds of posts on there. It's no problem to keep repeatedly mentioning them on social media, and I'll show you some ways that you can automate that in a second. And also, to make things stand out, I think visual content it works really well. So I'll skip on to the next slide. This is a post that we've been using to promote this webinar. So rather than just some text content that we were pushing out to Twitter, to Facebook and LinkedIn, where we've mainly been promoting it, we use this little graphic like this, and it makes it jump out a lot more. Visual content gets shared a lot more, and it just cuts through that noise a lot better. So some tips for distributing content on social. The first one would be, don't just post directly to Twitter, to Facebook, to LinkedIn. Get yourself one of the content posting tools Three of the really popular ones would be Buffer, Hootsuite, or Edgar. And we'll include links to all of this stuff after the webinar. But what you can do with them is load in your content and then push it out to all the social networks at once. So it's a real time saver. You can save content in there. With things like Edgar particularly, that thing I was talking about of repeating content, they're designed to do that. So what you do is load up all your content into the application, set a schedule, hit go, and it will just repeatedly push that content out. So it's a real good time saver as well. And I know for accountants and bookkeepers, time is always of the essence in terms of doing marketing. So these apps can really help with productivity as well. You can, obviously it goes without saying, you only want to be sharing useful content. You've got to be careful not to just be on social media and publishing or kind of sharing junk content. Publish really useful content and make sure you add your own spin. So it's good that you can comment on that content as well. Don't just be on Facebook for the sake of it, for example, and be posting, like funny cat videos. We don't need any more of those in the world. Or, LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of people are just posting these kind of very kind of simplistic like business quotes from, whoever it is, Winston Churchill or Gandhi or Steve Jobs or, the bloke in the pub. You've got to try and like raise above that and post content that's genuinely interesting. And also keep it appropriate to the social channel that you're in. So, if you're on LinkedIn, that's the business to business network, then, the kind of, it doesn't mean you can't be humorous or have fun, but it probably doesn't suit the same kind of content as you put on Facebook. So try and think about the audience that's going to be in that on that social website, and we'll cover off what those kind of audiences are later in the webinar. So the second way I think you need to use social media, apart from distributing content, is for engaging with clients and prospects. And this is a really key way that you can use it. The first thing that I would do is try and follow all of your clients on social media. If you don't know what sites they're using, ask them. They'll probably be quite happy for you and flattered for you to follow them. And so that, then you're going to be finding out what's happening in their businesses. You can talk about that stuff with them on social media, because the thing is then you're part of their network. And what their network is probably a whole bunch of other businesses, which equals prospects for you. And that doesn't mean you should go out and start just trying to sell to these people. But, if you're engaging in useful conversations with your clients and helping them, then other people are going to be seeing that who are potential clients for you. So what are some of the ways you could do that? Praise a client's success. They may have won a local business award or a big contract or something like that. Make sure that you praise them for that on social. That's not only going to make them really sticky with you and they'll be very happy that, you've done that. That's going to get you noticed by the people who are following them. And you can also, answer questions which builds trust. So they could be, direct sort of accounting or bookkeeping questions, but it could be things like, somebody could be looking for a lawyer, and they might tweet that out. I've seen that kind of thing, or a graphic designer, and you happen to know somebody. Well, you can post that to them, and you've been really useful, and other people see that. So that's a really good way to be interacting in a meaningful way, adding value and building trust. So kind of related to that is the networking aspect of social media, and it's a very powerful element of social sites. Is that you're not just networking, let's say, in your local business community. You've now got this wider network that you can get out to. So it may be local people, for example, prospects that you could engage with. So that might happen as a result of following your clients, starting some conversations, and you might start talking to somebody in one of their networks. So that's one thing that you could do. But you've also got to realize that social media gives you access to industry leaders and influencers as well in a very, it's unprecedented, the access you've got. So, if you think of, some of the influencers, some of the kind of, let's say, accounting software leaders, they're all, or tend to be, most of them are on social media, especially things like Twitter, having conversations which you can be part of. And that's an incredible way to build your network of business contacts. And another way to do that, rather than just kind of direct with people, is to join communities. So particularly with LinkedIn and Facebook, there are some excellent groups and communities on there which you can join. So they might be accounting or bookkeeping groups. They could be software focused. They could be around an industry or niche that you work with. There are lots of different ways that you can get involved in communities like that. And I guess a final way in terms of networking is attracting and finding employees. This is something that, obviously remains a challenge for lots of firms, is finding and keeping the right staff. Well, especially, if people see you on social media, it's a real good way to find out about you. And so people can be researching in that way. Or, you could put a message out through social if you're looking for staff, and you'd be amazed what might come back through that channel. So another way that I think this is a really underrated way that you can use social media is for research. So, the three things that I've talked about there so far, which is, distributing content, engaging with clients and prospects, and networking, they require you to be quite active. Whereas research, if you're just getting into social media, this is a bit more of a passive way that you can kind of get in there and start understanding how all these things work. So I think, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, get on LinkedIn, and start following some of the kind of influencers. It's not hard to find out who those people are. You can kind of follow a few people that you know, and then have a look who they're following as well. See those conversations they're having, and that can really help you stay at the cutting edge of the profession. You can see what those people are talking about, what technology they're using, who they're following, and really take note of what they're doing. It can also help, local and national business news. I mean, there's the mainstream media, but social media kind of digests all of that. People will talk about the interesting stories, and you can find that all in one place. And you can also get some, interesting kind of commentary on that, which is a bit different from the mainstream. So it helps you research things like that. If you're working in a niche or with a target industry, you have a specialization, I think social is a great place to learn more about that. Like we talked about, communities and groups, that there will be groups for every single industry and niche you can imagine. And sometimes it's not the big ones that are really useful. It's those small ones that are really focused around a specific topic that can be really beneficial. And the final way I think you can use social media is just as a traditional advertising channel. You can now pay to be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And particularly, I think some firms that we've been working with have had a lot of success using Facebook. It offers really good value lead generation services. It's too kind of big a topic to go into for the scope of this webinar, but you can create campaigns where you can actually get leads coming directly out of Facebook. And content really helps that. So going back to the webinar last week, content marketing, having great content can really help you generate those leads. But really, before you want to get into the advertising side, you need to create a good social presence as well. So it can't be just something that you go and kind of throw dollars at. You need to build up your normal social presence. So the other things I've just been talking about, do those as well, because people are going to check you out. If you have an advert there, they're going to check you out, just your normal Facebook page or whatever as well. So another question that we get asked all the time is which social sites should you use? There's kind of quite a few of them now, and really the answer I'd give to that is, look, it depends on what your audience is, and what we're going to do is run through the key social media platforms and kind of explain what the audience is and who they're suitable for. So we'll do that in just a minute. I think it also has to match your personal style. So if there's a very kind of certain way that you write on, for example, Twitter. It's obviously very short form way of writing. So if that doesn't suit you, then don't be on there. It's got to feel authentic. It's got to feel natural. And the other thing is really to focus. I've seen a lot of firms, they try and be on all the social networks, and they do it all pretty badly. You're much better focusing on one channel and doing that well than doing Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, and not really doing any of them justice. So I would say our focus is really important. So let's start with LinkedIn, because I think that's the business to business network, and probably majority of people listening here will be in some way using LinkedIn. It's actually a massive social network. So it's got more people using it than Twitter. So 380 million users. And what's different about LinkedIn users? They tend to be quite active. So on, for example, Twitter, there are a lot of fairly kind of static accounts that people aren't really looking at them. People on LinkedIn tend to be using it quite a lot. Different ways you can use LinkedIn, but I think you're going to get more benefit using the individual profiles feature. So that's where you're just using it as you, than company pages. By all means, create a company page, and you can post a bit of content there, but we've never found that to be a particularly kind of fruitful thing. People don't tend to interact with brands as much on LinkedIn. Certainly not with accounting firms. We've never really seen that done that well. Whereas with your individual profile, you can be posting content about your firm, linking back to your firm's website, and that can have that can work really well. So you can either post short updates, which is just very quick, kind of a couple of sentences, an image, something like that. Or LinkedIn now allows you to post kind of like full blog posts as well. We found those work really well. You can get quite a lot of engagement from them, and they can just be the same content that you're putting on your blog. You can also put on LinkedIn. You'll get that in front of a different audience. And you'll find that some of the communities on LinkedIn are excellent. There's a lot of groups in LinkedIn based on all kinds of different topics. Have a search around there, join some of those, and you'll quickly see, some of them are very active, some not so much. Some are very well moderated. Some of them are just full of kind of adverts. But you can try out a few, and you'll find some of them are really good. Next, Facebook. So, Facebook's the biggest social network by some way, 1.7 billion users. And the way we'd suggest you use that primarily is using business pages. So that's where you create a page for your firm. It's got information about your firm. Then you can post content to there. So, updates about the firm. You can post articles, videos, whatever content you want. You can get that on the page. You can also have your personal profile as well. Probably what you might want to do is you might not necessarily want to mix the personal and business side. So you might have a profile that you just use for business posting. and you could use that to get involved in like the communities on there. There's some, just like LinkedIn, some really excellent groups on Facebook, or you could even create your own. Now, I've heard of a few firms who've got private Facebook groups for their clients. So essentially, you're just using their Facebook software to interact with clients. That's quite an interesting way to create stickiness with your clients, and keep in the loop with them. And as I mentioned earlier, advertising on Facebook can be really effective and really good value as well. So that's worth a look, if you're using Facebook. So Twitter, it's one of those where I think it can be really good, or it might not fit with how your firm works. There's a real wide mix of people using Twitter, and there's a whole bunch of content on there that's, because they're very short posts being updated all the time, it can be really hard to be seen through the noise in terms of getting your content seen on there. But for engagement and networking, it's a really excellent channel, I think, for accountants and bookkeepers. When I was talking about following clients and prospects, influencers, that kind of thing, Twitter's an excellent place to do that, and from that flows the networking aspect as well. So that can be one way you use it, and I guess as well, research. So you can see kind of stories being posted there about the profession, about the industry. It can be a really good research channel as well. Now, Google Plus, we all a few years ago thought Google Plus was going to be this huge, amazing thing. I've honestly never really seen firms getting much of a result from it. I mean, I know trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, I know one firm in the Bay Area in San Francisco who use it, but that's a very kind of tech audience that he's got. I've never really seen many other people even using it. So reserve judgment, but it looks like Google Plus hasn't, it's certainly not taken on Facebook in the way that Google would have liked to have done. And if that's the case, I say don't necessarily waste time posting content there or being on there. There's allegedly quite a big search engine optimization benefit from Google Plus, but I mean, I would say that there's other ways you can do search engine optimization, and I wouldn't be using it as a social platform just for that reason. Instagram, it depends on your audience. So if you've got an audience of millennials, then maybe it can be a good one. I do know of a few firms who use Instagram. I don't exactly know the results they get from there, but it's one to consider. I think if you're in that space, you'll probably know whether you should be using it or not. But for most firms, I think it's probably a bit too niche. And certainly in that category as well would be Snapchat, which I've seen a few firms are using that now, but very much that they've got a very young user base, and so unless you're aiming there, I would say you're probably going to focus Facebook and LinkedIn, maybe Twitter, and these other ones would be kind of on the periphery. So getting started with social, I think that the main thing that I would say would be pick one social channel or two to focus on, and even if you're already doing social, you might look at it and think, we're on Google Plus, we're on Twitter, but we're not doing anything. Do we need to be there? Is it helping us? And think, okay, I'm gonna really focus on LinkedIn and Facebook this year, or whatever mix of platforms, because it's much better to do one or two than kind of just vaguely do four. Because if you look at the numbers, 1.71 billion on Facebook, 380 million on LinkedIn. If you just pick one of those, there's more than enough potential to make them work. than having to kind of be everywhere. The second thing is that you really need to make a plan and kind of review that. The scattergun approach just doesn't work. You need to be kind of disciplined, and I guess the plan really, you'd kick that back to your content plan. So if you're creating good content, and we talked about that last week, if you have an active blog, it's really easy to do social media because you've got the content to promote through there. And then the rest of it, the engagement part, becomes easier because you've got content flowing out. So having that plan is going to give you the backbone for success. And review that monthly, right? So I'd say make a plan for 90 days. I'm a big fan of like a 90-day plan. It's a long enough period that you can see results, but it's short enough that you're not kind of just making up fantasy plans for the future. Review it monthly, because stuff might not work. So there's no point flogging a dead horse if something's not working. But yeah, make a plan for 3 months and just get stuck into it. And I think set aside some time per day. I'd say 30 minutes per day. If you could try that, 2 times 15 minutes. So it doesn't even need to be that long. Even if it was 10 minutes a day, 2 times 5 minutes, that's better than nothing. But the thing not to do is just have the social media open all day, because it can be a massive kind of distraction. So you don't want that context switching where you're just constantly on social media, because you're not going to get any proper work done if you do that. So if you set aside that time and then also use some of those tools that I mentioned, like Buffer, Hootsuite, or Edgar, then a lot of your content stuff you can sort out, plan it and have that going out over a week or a month or whatever. And then you can use that time every day to do more of the interaction, the networking part. I think the final thing I say is don't expect results right away. It's very much not a traditional type of media where you go, okay, let's throw some dollars at an advertising campaign and some clients are going to drop out the other end. It's not going to work like that. It's going to take a few months to see the benefits, and it can be quite intangible at first to see the benefits you're having, but you will see that over time, and it could be that day one you get an amazing interaction and it results in a client, but it might be that it takes 2 months, it might take 4 months. But being on there and interacting with people, it's all kind of raising your reputation, building trust, building credibility. So it all has a benefit. So summing up, look, social media works, and in fact, it's really an ideal way for accountants and bookkeepers to promote yourself, because I think it does fit in. It fits in with the kind of like the old ways that you used to do marketing in terms of networking, in terms of referrals. It very much is in that kind of realm of things. But don't view it like a traditional marketing channel, which as I mentioned, it's not just like sort of like dollars in, clients out the other end. It's a bit more complex than that, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It's hard to put an ROI on everything in your business, and that doesn't mean it's not a good thing. The example I always give is great customer service. Can you put an ROI on that? Not at all. Should you do it? Absolutely. So social media is a bit in that kind of sphere. I mean, you can measure results, but it's not as kind of cause and effect as some forms of marketing. You need to decide where your audience is and focus there. So, if, you work with a lot of kind of older businesses and older people, then, you don't want to be on Snapchat. If, LinkedIn is great if you're working with professionals. Lots of professionals are on LinkedIn. So it's about working out who your audience is and focusing there. Like I say, having a plan and sticking to that is really important. It's not something just to dive into and just kind of be randomly commenting here, posting stuff. Having a plan will, like anything in business, it's going to yield better results. And I just don't expect those results to come overnight. It's something that you got to be in it for the long haul. But I think social media's, it's reached a tipping point where I think you can't avoid being on there. Those user numbers I gave you earlier, 1.71 billion for people on Facebook, 380 million on LinkedIn, huge numbers of people. Your clients and prospects are on there, so you got to be on there as well.